Hello and welcome to episode 35 of the Select Characters podcast. 35. It's pretty good.
We're doing well.
That's not
Double
bad.
digits.
I'm Sam Yates. I'm here. I'll be your host. I've got Christopher Anderson and Enrique Cancel with me.
How's it going?
Hello.
And today we're gonna tune in, talk about some video games, got a little bit of topics, some what you've been playing, and let's cruise on into it. Because I'm sort of lacking an intro today, so
Everybody's having a bit of an off day today, it seems.
yeah. Thanks for tuning in to the mild headache podcast. But we're gonna do it. We're gonna push through. Let's get into talking about what we've been playing. I think that'll bring us right back around. And it has been another excellent week for video games. Let's talk a little bit about what we've been playing. Let's start with Chris.
For me, it was just the video game, and I had a weak moment, and I bought The Crew on PC again after having bought it on PlayStation 4 and selling it off because I didn't really enjoy it all that much.
Mm-hmm. And you came back to the well.
Yes, I did, because I liked the look of the Wild Run expansion and the whole graphical update and the tweaked handling and stuff. Then I saw it was on sale on the web somewhere, and I just bought it again for quite cheap. So I've been playing an awful lot of that.
That's cool, man. Is that the one where the Frost Vikings are chasing you and you have to outrun them in your car?
Wait, what?
With the spectral horses and all that stuff. I was going for a Witcher 3. Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
No. No. Yes, but no. Just no.
Okay.
That game is a lot better now than it was. The handling's better and it looks better. It's still far from a good racing game, though. The handling is still terrible, even with the tweaks. It still doesn't look fantastic, although it has its moments. But that game still does that whole wanderlust thing very, very well. And I find that I'm not really playing the story missions. I'm just road tripping to places I haven't been before. And it takes you around 45 minutes to get from the east to the west coast. So I just set a waypoint somewhere far, far away from where I am now. And I just go driving for, I don't know, an hour or something like that. Stick on a podcast and just do stuff, which I find very, very enjoyable.
That sounds all right.
Yeah, it's not bad. Like that game has no right to be as enjoyable as it is because nothing in that game works as intended, I feel. And the summit, they call it, is like a new edition where every month you can do qualifiers. You can qualify yourselves for the summit, which is like a monthly tournament thing where you can compete with other players. And if you manage to win that, you get to take home an exclusive car that isn't available anywhere else.
Oh, neat.
Nice. Yeah. Not as
Is that
enjoyable.
just for times? Like on a particular track, best time, stuff like that?
No, it's different disciplines like drag racing and drifting and stuff like that. And now there's monster truck things where you basically just get let loose in a very, very big Tony Hawk Pro Skater-esque level. And you just have to score points and stuff, which is quite fun. But I get the feeling that they only put that in the game to make it feel like there's more going on in the game than there actually is.
Right. I mean, even then, I like games that can kind of successfully manage to get you to enjoy your time without actually having doing anything.
Yeah, but it's not because of the game's mechanics or the game's features other than the map. The map makes it enjoyable, and just driving around, seeing the sights, that's pretty great. In no other game can you do a street race in New York and then drive to Miami in one go, without a loading screen or anything. And that is very impressive, and it's a lot of fun. So I'll be playing more of that in the coming weeks, I guess, because I'm having a good time. And I'm working on a video on it as well, which should be coming out in a week and a half, something like that.
I hope that video is just 30 minutes of you driving.
Monster trucks. Driving monster trucks, I hope. That'd be great. I love monster trucks, man. Like, why not? Sure. No,
Yeah.
it's like so you're saying it's the best follow-up to Micro Machines that's ever been made?
Yeah.
Good. All right.
Outside of that, did I play anything else? Oh, yeah, I did actually. South Park: The Stick of Truth. I reinstalled that because it has been quite some time since I last played it. And the game's just hilarious, man. It's just a very, very long South Park episode. And it's just, it's fun. Like, the writing's really witty. There's loads of references to all your favorite things from the shows. Every character you might like from that show just passes the review. And it's just great. It is great. And it's actually a pretty good game as well, outside of just the South Park stuff. The mechanics are actually pretty decent. It's a pretty good turn-based RPG.
Groovy.
And that was it for me.
Okay. All right, cool. Let's see what Enrique's been playing. Enrique, what you been playing?
I've actually been dividing my time mainly between Xenoblade Chronicles Cross and Endless Legend. So Endless Legend, I got to sit down a little bit more and play it, and I'm actually really liking it now that I can see kind of a little bit more of the dissimilarities it has. When I first picked it up, it's very... What was that?
With Civ, you mean?
Yeah, because when I picked it up, I mean, it almost looks like I don't want to say a carbon copy of Civ, but it's, it borrows very heavily from it, from like the hex-based tile set to the resource management to like the way you find settings and all that.
Interface is very, very reminiscent of Civ 5, which is pretty great. If you've been playing Civilization and you want to jump to something else, it takes you little to no time at all to get adjusted to Endless Legend.
Yeah, it's great because it makes that transition really nice. But when you actually start playing it more, you start seeing kind of there's a little bit more meat in the bones, which one of the things that I love is that there's a bigger focus on the actual races you're playing.
Yeah.
Which I thought was fantastic because it kind of makes the gameplay a little bit more unique. I think the game I'm playing right now, I'm playing it as the Necrophages, which are kind of a humanoid insectoid race.
Yeah.
And it's pretty cool because part of their thing is that because because of their nature, they're very warmongering. So it puts a restriction on you for the gameplay where you're not allowed to have any kind of trade, treaties, or diplomacy is not going to be an option. So the only way you can really win the game is by, you actively have to go into conflicts with other players. But they also get a bonus for that where I guess like it's part of their hive culture where like they gain power through adversity. So the more people you're at war with, the stronger your units are, which is kind of cool.
Yeah.
But it's kind of nice. And then, no, go ahead.
That game is really good at making all the different factions feel completely different. And needing a different approach to the game. That's great. You don't really see that all that often.
No, and I really like how it kind of blends those little fantasy RPG elements really well. Like the questing system's really neat, where it actually builds in little objectives for you to kind of try to reach as you're playing, but you also have that overall story for your particular race.
Yeah.
So how do you guys, this is where I always have a question with these games. Like when you want to start playing them, how do you set them up? Because I went through the tutorial for Endless Legend and I thought, this game is incredible. It's going to be amazing. The art style was gorgeous. There were lots of nice little resources and mechanics at play. And then I got into start a new game, and it wants me to set everything up myself. Like there's no scenarios, there's no campaign, there's no pre-designed sort of gameplay. You just set it all up yourself and then go. So what do you do normally when you want to like set up a brand new game? What are your ideals? How do you do it?
It's like Civ where like the setup you do is just kind of like dictating how difficult you want the AI, what kind of terrain you want to be fighting on, or like how big you want the world to be. The campaign stuff actually comes from picking a race, because each race has its own kind of mini story or motivations. And like I was saying, the Necrophages, they have like certain restrictions where like with them you can only win through like actual like combat. Like you cannot do like some kind of passive victory. You cannot make any kind of diplomacy agreements with anybody. So with them, it kind of guides the gameplay specifically for that race. And they also have like their own little, I guess, style of like story mode where it gives you certain goals to achieve. Same thing with, I think, the Broken Lords or another unit, which they're the guys that are kind of like disembodied ghosts inside armor. They have their own kind of way of victory. And like, I think their resource management is completely different, where I think they can only use dust to create units.
Yeah,
so you just kind of decide, I want to be these people, and then random for the others, or?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, I usually just set everything as random, and I kind of pick the kind of people I want to play with, and then go from there. And then the game kind of does a pretty good job of guiding you towards a gameplay style.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you need to be a bit inquisitive about how you go about your game. I think you have to have that explorer streak, I guess. Like you want to know what's on the next tile, and you want to know what's behind that bit of fog of war and stuff. And you want to see what different creatures you will encounter if you go beyond the scope of your own kingdom, which I find very enjoyable. Plus, the game basically looks like the intro to Game of Thrones. And
that's kind of why I picked the Necrophages as a faction to start with, because usually for those kind of games like Civ, I take my time, level up your cities and kind of work your way. But with them, it kind of forces you to have an aggressive play style where you are going to be expanding and you are going to be attacking other players, and that's your only recourse.
Do you ever find that the challenge isn't there because you're the one who sets the starting parameters?
Well, you can make it as difficult as you want. You can make it harder for yourself.
I wonder, because I don't know, for that kind of game, it's always been one that if I find that the difficulty is lacking, I usually just turn it up at that.
Is there something where you unlock stuff for your next playthrough new races and things as you play the current one?
No, you forget that these games are meant to be played for dozens of hours per session, basically. Per game, you can take basically as long as you like. I have Civilization games that I've been playing for close to 400 turns now because I always switch the time feature off.
Yeah, it isn't like Dungeons of the Endless where it's more traditional roguelike. This is more of a traditional kind of like 4X kind of strategy.
Yeah. I really like playing the games. It's the initial setup that always feels very strange to me, and I don't like doing it. I found that website Scenario Generator, and I think if I ever do get into that game, I'll probably use something similar to that because setting the starting condition just makes me feel like strange. I don't know.
Best thing I could tell you at that point is just don't touch the starting things whatsoever. Just kind of take the game as it's given to you with default settings and worry about picking a faction. That's it.
Yeah. That's a good one.
Because I think at that point you're kind of overthinking it. Because once you start playing the game and once you get a little bit more experience, I think is when you start getting the motivation to start a new game and think to yourself, okay, you know what, I did really well on this type of map. Let me change it up and make it a bigger map or a smaller map, or let me put these restrictions on myself. I think that's the roguelike aspect of it. But the only difference between that and more traditional ones is that you actually get to choose what kind of handicaps or benefits you give yourself on your next playthrough once you have the experiences from your first one.
Yeah, that's the weird thing to me, I think, is designing my own challenge, like when you put it that way. I like to be given pre-designed challenges, you know?
And like I said, for that thing, the best thing to do is just go into it blind. Like, pick a race that looks cool, because they have like a really fun kind of flavor description for every race, and you get to see what bonuses each particular faction has.
Yeah.
Pick that, and then go forth on the game, and then based on that, you can kind of tweak it.
Yeah, and you do have a quest line that is just eternally there, and that pushes the story forward. So if you're looking for a bit of a narrative, you know, a bit of context as to who these factions are and why they are the way they are, you can just follow the quest line, and that quest line will send you all over the place to find out stuff. So there is something to follow if you want it.
Yeah, because at that point, like when you win, you just win a thing that you set up for yourself. So it's almost like, you set the starting conditions. You don't know how the game is going to end. You can't predict how the game is going to go based on the starting conditions. You can only figure out the start. You don't know anything about the middle or the end game. And every game is different because it has a tech tree as well. So every playthrough with every faction can be completely different depending on which skills you choose, depending on which heroes you decide to choose, depending on what kind of victory you'd like to achieve.
That is
you
true.
Can make it as hard
it's
as
not
you
like
want.
You're designing your whole gameplay experience. Like, you're literally just kind of setting out the starting parameters, and then from then the game takes that into account and it kind of forms itself after that.
Yeah.
I'm just going to have to get in there, I think. That seems like the answer.
Yeah, maybe Civilization 5 is a better introduction to the series or to the style of gaming.
Yeah, I didn't really like that game too much.
Honestly, I like this one a lot better because the diplomacy thing is fantastic. It was one of my favorite aspects of it.
And the thematic stuff in this one is definitely far, far better.
Oh, yeah, it looks better. But if you want the basic... Pardon me. If you want the basics, then Civ is the way to go, basically, because that game just teaches you everything you need to know about the genre.
Because I definitely prefer ogres and merpeople to George Washington.
Right. No, I think you really like this, especially when you get into the nitty-gritty of like all the management you can do with your workers and colonies and where do you allocate your resources once you start playing.
Yeah, the tutorial was incredible. I played the tutorial and I was like, yep, this is the next thing I want to play.
Have you actually started a game up yet, or have you kind of been hesitant because of that?
I just played the tutorial, and then there were no scenarios and no campaign, and I was like, I don't want to be the one who decides what winning is because I don't want to impose a challenge on myself. I want an externally imposed challenge. I want them to be like, hey, can you do this? You know? That's more of what I play games for. If I set it up myself, well, then that's sort of strange because the incentive is to just make it easy, or if I make it hard and then I beat it, like, what did I do there? I just set it up and then beat my own thing. It doesn't feel as good.
You can set your own goals. I don't see what's so bad about that.
Because I don't feel like I win when I just complete my own goals. I don't know why.
It helps that you have,
could just be me.
Like, the questing system in the game is, I think, what will help you because it'll give you the direction you want. Because, like I said, each race has its own little victory parameters. So you have, like, this epic quest chain which will lead to your winning the game by fulfilling certain goals. And as you go out exploring, you can actually pop up and see other quests that kind of come out and give you more goals. For example, I think with the necrophages, I explored some ruins and I found this ancient weapon that was encased in glass steel. So part of that, I needed to in order to get access to that weapon, I had to eliminate some hostile minor factions within that map. I had to colonize it, I had to build it up, and then I had to actually set up like research to the technology available to extract the weapon. So I mean, it was kind of like a cool little mini chain of events that led up to that point.
It's emergent gameplay, isn't it? Like it's a randomized element within that game.
I mean, yeah, it's neat. And like right now, like I think I'm at war with 4 different races just because they don't like that I'm kind of spreading like a swarm.
As you do.
Yeah, as one does. But no, I mean, I think you're just overthinking it. I think you really just need to start a game and go at it and then let it go from there. Because you don't have as much agency as you think you do.
Yeah, I think you might be right. I'm going to dig in there this week and I'll report back. I'll let you know.
One shout out before we move on. The soundtrack by Fly By No is absolutely fantastic because it mixes the expected medieval, like folky tinged music with electronic elements. And as a track, like if you're listening to this, look up the song Dusty Strings by Fly By No, which is a fantastic track. And when I heard that track in combination with the visuals, that's the moment where the game clicked for me. Oh, the soundtrack's so incredibly good.
Yeah, it definitely fits it. But yeah, that and then Xenoblade Chronicles Cross, which it's now that I have my Mac, the game feels a lot more smoother, I guess.
It definitely changes things. I've been playing that this week some too, so let's maybe dig into that for a minute.
Yeah.
I got nothing to contribute to that, but go ahead.
Yeah, I'm not sure what exactly I think about that game in particular. It's strange, man. My grandma used to say she wasn't happy, she was content.
Yeah, that's kind of how I feel.
Yeah, I feel content with that game. I'm not on blast hyper excited about it, but I am content. And that's the best way I know to describe it. It's not blowing me away, but it's pretty good.
It's fun. It's got some really good elements, but there's some I've been reading because I didn't get a chance to play the the precursor, Xenoblade Chronicles?
Yeah, on the Wii.
But from what I've read, apparently Xenoblade Chronicles was a lot more story-driven, so you had a little bit more focus in the way you progressed through the game, whereas this game feels a lot more open-ended. And I think that lack of structure is probably contributing to the overall sense of just content versus that sense that you actually achieved something. It
seems to lack depth in a way. I'm not sure. I go do these things and I plant these probes and I fight these monsters and it just feels like just not really super good. I'm not sure exactly why. The combat and the ability system is fun, like in the moment with executing it, picking the skills, setting yourself up, and then hooping your own shots.
Have you messed around with the soul voices too?
A little bit, but not a whole lot. But it seems like there's something else there too.
Yeah, I had to sit down and do some research because that game does a very poor job of kind of explaining those things out to you.
Yeah, you need to nail the soul voices too because you need the healing when you're in the middle of the combat. Yeah,
with the soul voices, you can actually change what they do as well in that little submenu. So you can kind of like have specific effects assigned, and then you can kind of base your abilities around that, which is kind of cool. But I think one thing that I really am disappointed with is the game does not take any effort whatsoever in helping a new player out. Yeah,
but you can find all that stuff.
No, you can, but I guess
I'd rather be able to just read it than go through 40 minutes of gameplay.
They give you a pretty good understanding.
Because the manual is really nicely done. It's well cross-sectioned and indexed, so it's like if you want to learn more about this, press this button and it takes you straight to that page.
Right.
And I'd rather just read that in 10 minutes than spend 40 minutes going through 6 quests in a game to like gradually teach me how to work with all that stuff. And I think that stuff is fun to execute, but I don't think it's fun to set up.
I gotcha.
Picking all your skills and putting the points where they need to go and all that stuff feels underwhelming and just feels like a bunch of combinatorics, like what should I put together with what, but in a way that's unsatisfying because there's so many things and so many combinations that you just end up going, all right, this is probably generally pretty good, and normally you're right. There's no incentive to the point where you actually need to get it perfect to really nail the combat because you can do just fine making that stuff just okay.
That's true, and that becomes painfully clear when you're doing some of the story missions where there's a really big jump in difficulty with some of them where, like, you know, you start a story mission, you'll be fighting a level 17 enemy, and then by the end of the chapter, you're fighting a level 37, and you're like, what the hell?
And it does that really, really pedantic thing where it's like, you lost 3 times, do you want to make it easier?
Yeah, I know, and you're like, no, you asshole.
I know, I hate that so much.
But like I said, yeah, you're right, because it does become painfully clear because there's so much in terms of adjusting and skills up that you can do just okay and get through it. But then when you get to an actual difficult boss encounter, you start realizing, holy crap, I'm way out of my league. And that's like a checkpoint mentally where you have to go back and you're like, okay, let me buy all new gear, level up all these abilities, let me set the abilities up, and then go back at it.
Right. So I think that as a way to drive you into that stuff, I think that's good. It's just that when you find that combination, it never really feels satisfying.
Yeah, and
to me,
like I said, I don't know if maybe that's because of the lack of direction the game itself has, because it's played and designed to be more open world than the original Xenoblade Chronicle. And I think, just from what I've heard, that game, because of the way the story was driven, it felt a lot more cohesive, whereas this, feels like a lot of small independent experience.
Mm-hmm. And I think that there's a certain amount of combinations that is the good amount that makes you want to dig in there and try them all and figure out what works. Mm-hmm. And then there's the amount of combinations that is way too many that you just want to jump on the internet and just look up what the best one is.
Right, exactly, yeah.
And this is definitely the second type.
Point where you're like, you know what, there's way too much going on. Let me just min-max real quick.
And because it's not necessarily a strategic thing, it's just trying to find what things match up. And just trying this with this, okay, this with that, this with those. And there's so many that you don't want to explore it. I just looked it up online and found out what was good, and I was done. Like, that was great. And normally I wouldn't do that stuff, but it's just like the reward isn't worth the effort in this point. And I think a lot of that game goes along with that sort of grindy nature.
Yeah, where like it gets to the point where it's overwhelming, but not in the sense where you get that sense of fulfillment once you actually figure it out. It's overwhelming to the point where it becomes a chore.
Yeah, absolutely. And the maps are also frustrating because everything is just a giant cliff face, and trying to plant those 30% probes or 20% probes to unlock Chapter 6 was an absolute nightmare of just giant rock faces and having to go 6 hexes back to go 5 hexes forward to try to get to this mining probe. And I know you're going to give me a flying robot. And they turned me into like a petulant child. Just give me the robot.
I know. It gets and I hated that because I remember right before you get to that robot stage, you need to have, 26% explored in Nephilim or whatever the area is. And it's irritating as fuck because I got to about 20%, and then when I'm looking for the other probes, they're high up on the cliffside where I have no idea how the hell to get to them.
And you have to go down and around and back.
Like you said, you have to backtrack 6 hexes and then go 4 hexes east and then go another 2 up and then make another. And it's ridiculous. And it becomes painfully apparent, too, when you finally do get the mech, that there's this whole level of verticality in the game that it seemed like it was shut away from you before. And then when you get the mech and you can realize you can just skip a lot of that backtracking and just jump over obstacles, I don't know, it's really frustrating.
Yeah, it sucks to spend that time when you know that you shouldn't really have to because there is a solution on the horizon.
Yeah, no, but I think around that mark, I was actually really, like you said, like a petulant child. You just sitting there, you're like, I just want to fucking do this so I can get the robot. That's all. That's
it, man. That's the only reason I kept doing it was because I wanted the robot. And okay, here's the thing, though. The robot's pretty cool.
It is. Yeah, the robot's pretty awesome, and equipping it with all the different cool weapons and gizmos is pretty awesome, too.
And all that bullshit makes it feel better.
Yeah, and exactly. And it's like, it's
so
weird
I'm mad,
so
but I'm also not mad. I don't know what to do.
Yeah, I don't know how to think because, like you said, you're frustrated up to that point, but then they give you this really awesome mech that it almost tricks you into thinking it was all worth it.
It does kind of a little bit. It turns into a car, man.
And you know what the best part is? You can buy several of them and have your party equipped with each one.
Yeah, the skells are very, very cool.
And I like the system that they have where they have like that fuel gauge where the moves use fuel. And you have the insurance system where if they get destroyed, you have 3 chances to recover it, and after that you have to pay for it.
Yeah, I immediately broke my first one.
Oh, dude, I actually jumped off a cliff by accident.
I targeted some level 50 guy because I wanted to see what the mech was all about, and just got one shot and blew it up 10 seconds in.
That did take me a little bit getting used to because your level 30 mech can technically take out up to level 40-ish people if you have the right weapons and abilities.
But you don't at the start. You have to buy that stuff. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And the equipment, at least the armor for the guys, has been frustrating for me because every armor set has one thing that kind of sucks about it.
Right.
I got my first armor set and I was super excited because it looked rad, and then I panned the camera around and he had rocket-powered butt flaps.
Oh, yeah, I know what you're talking about.
I was like, okay, let's skip the rocket-powered butt flaps. Let's get the next set of armor. And then there was a flesh-colored triangle that when the camera was zoomed out made him look like he was wearing a V-neck. And then the next set of armor was crazy, demonic, weird-looking, but had a strange happy face out of lights on the faceplate. The armor sets in that game have been pretty cool with
lackluster.
one mild disappointment like every single time.
Well, and then you have like that really weird setup where it's just like t-shirts and shorts and bathing suits out of nowhere.
Oh, that's right, because you can do cosmetic.
Yeah.
That's right, but still actually have the stats from the gear. Yeah, I don't know if I'm into that.
The fashion gear. I mean, it's not bad because I did find a couple sets like when you put them together, you look semi-presentable, like what I would picture a futuristic mech pilot would look like.
Yeah,
But
that's true.
I
want to give...
It's a confusing experience because, like you said, I'm not sure. Like, I'm not upset about it, but I'm constantly playing it, so that's gotta be something.
Yeah, me too. I think it's charming and kind of funny sometimes, and pretty good overall with those minor flaws. I think that should definitely be highlighted the little blue crystals that are all throughout the world that you run over to get pickups.
Like the random items you pick up.
I think that's exactly a very smart, very simple solution to the running through an open world problem.
What do you mean in regards to like finding items?
Well, in regards to running from point A to point B, there's just a bunch of randomly scattered little blue crystals, so you're never just running in a straight line and zoning out. You're always sort of zigzagging to get the next little blue crystal.
Right.
I think that's a really smart idea for covering those large distances.
Well, I mean, I do like that the crystals themselves are just like they're actual items you pick up that you can use for your, weapons or like quests later on. It's not a game like The Witcher 3 where, like, you'll pick up a quest like, oh, you need 7 of these berries. You're like, you go and find a bush somewhere.
Yeah. Yeah, they also have function, which is also good. But it sort of breaks up the monotony of running across large tracts of land. And it's a very simple way to solve that problem, which is why I like it so much. I think it's a really smart idea.
Yeah, the crew actually does something similar. If you're covering large distances, you always come upon challenges that you can do while you're driving in the direction that you're going in anyway. So
nice.
So you're always improving or you're always working towards something, no matter where you're going in that game. So it's pretty cool to see that it's applied to a wholly different game as well.
Yeah, I love it. I love the tiny solutions to tiny problems.
And like I said, I mean, the whole, like, the mech thing I wish the game itself, the entire game was about the mech.
That'd probably be fine. Yeah, I don't know.
It seems to me that in a game that is primarily about mechs, it would be frustrating to have a portion of the game not take place inside a mech.
But at the same time, it's incredibly frustrating, but it makes the payoff so good. So I don't know.
Right.
I can't be entirely critical of it.
Yeah, it's just weird that you don't get the mech until about halfway through the game, though.
Yeah, in general, I like that game, but I'm not with it.
Right.
Yeah, that's sad to hear because you were looking forward to it a great deal.
No, I mean, it's still a fun game, and like I said, I mean, it's good enough to where I actively look forward to come home and playing it. But it's weird. Like I'm looking forward to play it, but once I'm done playing it, it's like.
I had to take a break. I played it for 2 days just nonstop until I got the mech, and then kind of fell off for a little bit, and then just jumped back in to just run around a little bit more and got back into it. So I am content with that game, but it's not gonna rocket up any charts, and it's not gonna change the world. But it's fun to just play for a little bit.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, anything else?
I think that's the main chunk of it.
Cool. I played Xenoblade. I also played Punch Club.
Oh yeah, how was it? Because I debated picking that up because it looked interesting.
Oh, they ended up releasing it, did they?
Yeah, it came out yesterday or the day before. I'm not sure. They had that whole weird marketing thing where they like made Twitch play the game and then didn't release until Twitch finished it. But
yeah,
whatever. I mean, it worked. There's people talking about that. So
yeah, to me, that just seemed like a very original way to market the game. Play on something that has been popular on Twitch for a while now, with the whole Twitch plays Pokemon thing and all the derivatives that came after that. I thought that it was great, but a lot of people. They didn't think it was great. I actually read some responses by some people saying that they refunded their purchase because they are holding their game hostage.
Oh, come on. It came out 2 weeks early, so...
Yeah, it's just people being people, But
yeah.
I don't know. I thought it was a very original way to market a game, but this being the internet, it might not have been a great idea because people are insane.
Extremely cynical.
So what's the premise of the game?
The premise of the game is it's one of those little sort of light tycoon time management, resource management games. You are a boxer guy, and I guess that sort of about hits it, right? Like on its face, there's not too much going on there. You upgrade your skills, you get in fights, you win more fights. You sort of work with your hunger and your energy and your money, trying to divide yourself between all these different tasks. It's like every other mini tycoon game that's been out. It's like Game Dev Story or...
Okay.
I like on Android, I really like games made by a company called Kairosoft. And it's very evocative of that same type of style. It's not incredibly complicated. It's almost like a slightly gussied up incremental game, those style of games, because you're just creating efficiency to create more money. And it's one step removed from any kind of incremental game. But I like them. I think they're fun.
I would say, does this fall into that trap a lot of them do, that once you figure out that kind of like sweet spot for the system, it takes away all challenge?
Not necessarily, because it has a little bit more than that. You need to pick your skills for your fights, and you need to adjust them during the rounds to be more effective against your opponent, or like the ones that counter your opponent's skills so that you're more set up, higher probability to win. And the time management is interesting because your skills degrade at a pretty rapid rate. So you have to constantly decide about trade-offs. What do I want to do? Do I want to do this instead of this? There's some interesting decision making there. Not incredibly complicated or brain-racking stuff. It's not anything that you're ever going to have smoke come out of your ears over, but it's enough to keep the game flowing forward.
Okay.
So that is enough on its own to make an interesting little game, but I think what often makes games like that shine is the environment they're placed in or the thematic elements to them.
Right.
And that's where this game nails it, because you start out and you have to figure out what's going on. You have like this amulet that's supposed to give you special powers, and it's every trope from every movie like that you can possibly think of.
Okay.
There's like in your garage where you go to work out, there's a Bloodsport poster on the wall. So I was instantly sold because Bloodsport's fantastic, but it's basically just constant references to stuff like that. Like you go talk to Brad Pitt from Fight Club and he says, "Hey, go talk to my brother," and it's Brad Pitt from Snatch. Every fighting sort of reference or trope is in there. And if you think that stuff is awesome, then it takes that basic formula and elevates it to a new level because it's hilarious. And you keep seeing all these references, Big Trouble in Little China and the Rocky movies. And if you're into that stuff, it elevates it to a level where it makes it even better than it could have been with just that simplistic-ish formula and mechanics. So that's what I think makes that game shine, is all that interesting stuff. Without saying too much, because I think discovering that is part of the fun of it. But I think that should give you a general idea what's going on with Punch Club. So I like it. I've been playing it for a day or two. I don't know if it'll hold my interest forever, but it keeps being surprising and silly in a fun way that I really like. And the one of the things is like the big bad guy is eventually going to invite you to a tournament on his secret island. So it's just stuff like that. It's just over the top, very action movie, heavy in references in a way that I like, but I could also see sometimes that stuff turns people off. But I'm not sure if I've ever seen it before, have it draw from... Normally the referential stuff kind of draws from the internet culture and other games, sort of saying, look at us, we're a video game, that fourth wall kind of stuff. I don't know if I've ever seen a game pull so much in from that type of film genre, like reference movies in this way and tie it together with cinema. I think that's awesome because those movies are awesome.
Yeah, so it's obviously made by people who love that stuff.
Yeah, it's a love letter to that kind of thing, based on, and then built on top of a pretty decent mechanical formula.
Oh, there you go.
So overall, yeah, it's pretty groovy.
Cool.
And that about wraps up my week.
All right.
So, let's move forward and talk about some topics.
Due to me playing The Crew, I was wondering about what games can do to sort of force you to explore the world without actually giving you a reason to do so. Because in The Crew, you are not really given much of a reason to explore every nook and cranny of the map outside of the races. Yet, the wanderlust that I mentioned earlier in the podcast, the wanderlust that it triggers, makes me want to go across every field and go across every forest and stuff to see what's there. And let's talk about what games can do to sort of trigger that wanderlust in us.
I think it's one of the hardest things to do, to make a video game, put something in an out-of-the-way location, and then not talk about it anymore.
Yeah.
And I think that is what drives you to explore without being incentivized, is they have to be willing to put something there for you, whether it's an amazing vista or some little treasure chest or a nugget of some type, but then just let it be there.
Yeah, like don't reference it, don't push players towards that. It's just if you stumble upon like an Easter egg somewhere far away from all the good stuff in the game, that really feels good. That's a memorable moment, and I think that is the reason why a lot of that stuff is there in the first place.
It absolutely is, and they oftentimes are allergic to doing that. They want to, if they made something, they want you to see it. So they end up putting a quest out there or an objective marker or something so that you can't possibly go by it. But that takes away from the gratification you get from exploring.
I like games that use the actual landscape itself to subtly guide you in that direction.
Got a few examples for that?
I guess most recently, just because I've been playing, but Xenoblade Chronicles has done it where you'll be exploring in a cave and you'll randomly look to the left and see like, hey, that looks a little odd there. And as you walk up to it, you have this massive cavern you're walking through, and then there's this really small entryway that's just big enough for your character to fit through. You're like, well, I wonder what this is. So it kind of encourages you to kind of go through it, and you realize that the path kind of just keeps going and it keeps winding. So it kind of slowly builds up that wonderment because, like you start off with just a small, vague recognizing of the cave, going, oh, I wonder what that is. And then as you're progressing, you're like, okay, this keeps going. There's something here. There's something here. And then eventually you get to like a treasure chest, or you get to a room with like a lot of little blue crystals that are items to pick up on the ground. So things like that are actually really well done, I think.
Or a beautiful vista that says,
yeah, with the vista,
what are they called?
The scenic,
scenic view or scenic point unlocked, something like that.
Yeah, there was one in like the Oblivia continent, which is like a massive desert, where I found a little cave and I'm kind of wandering around, and then it leads me to this balcony from this weird derelict temple that overlooks this bay, and like I thought it was fantastic.
And I like the way they incentivize it, because in some of those places you almost feel like you're cheating, because the way you have to jump on the geometry is that classic way of finding the slope that's exactly the right angle you can stand on. So it's not laid out.
Yeah, or like it lets you stand just long enough so you can get the momentum to jump somewhere else.
Right, and a lot of the stuff, the explorative stuff in that game is hidden behind those. So instead of stacking up 3 pillars that are perfectly set for you to jump on, they'll put places that almost look like you can't get there, but you feel like you're almost cheating or exploiting the game by getting there, and then it turns out that was their plan all along.
Actually, going along with that, one thing that I really like that Xenoblade does, and a lot of other games have started doing more recently, is that they got rid of the invisible walls.
Yeah.
A lot of games, like Oblivion comes to mind, those games like to place just random invisible walls, so when you see those places that you think you can't get to, but you want to try anyway, you're immediately met with a stopping point. Skyrim was notorious for that, where like you'll see a mountain, you're like, oh man, I wonder if I can just climb up this way instead. And you'll get about halfway through it, and you find that perfect slope where it's a perfect angle where you can keep jumping off of, and then immediately it'll stop you saying, nope, can't go this way.
Yeah, I hate it when that happens, man.
And I think those kind of things kind of dissuade players from wanting to explore.
Yeah, it takes you right out of the game
absolutely.
as well. An example of a game that does it really good or really well, in my opinion, is GTA 5, because the entire map is circular. There is no way to really get off of the map, and if you do, you can just go on infinitely, basically.
Oh man, actually, speaking of GTA, one thing that I never liked about GTA was how they intentionally closed off sections of the map to you, where if you try to get there, you're immediately killed.
They don't do that anymore. No, they don't do that as of GTA 5. Like, the entire map is open to you from the start, if I recall correctly. I think 4 was the last one to do that, with the different islands in Liberty City.
With the closed off cities and stuff?
Yeah, they always use like a very flimsy excuse for that as well. So, like there's a weather warning or some shit, and that's why the bridges are closed.
Yeah, or bridges in construction or something.
Yeah, exactly. Which is bullshit, obviously. But GTA 5 doesn't do that anymore. You have access to the entire map from the get-go.
I like that. And I like it when you get in those weird different places and it's not just a blank texture. They actually...
Yeah.
There's something cool there.
Yeah, GTA is really good about that. There are parts of that map in GTA 5. No mission sends you there ever. You have no reason to go there ever, but it's still like fully featured stuff. There is like a place underneath a bridge where hobos come to congregate and just sit around fires and drink and play the guitar and stuff. There's an entire dam in that game, like somewhere upstate. You never go there. You don't have to go there ever for nothing. Yet it is still there as set dressing. And I love that those little details are there because they make the world feel more real than it actually is.
Totally. And you're only generally going to do that 1 or 2 times. You're going to say, hey, I wonder what happens if I go way over here, just because. And if you go out there and there's nothing there and it's just blank texture, you're not going to do it again.
That's one thing I loved, actually, about Fallout 4 with some of the random underwater locations where there's no reason for you to go there. There's no quest marker. There's no quest or item to pick up there. It's just a random underwater vista that you only find if you happen to jump in the water and walk like 20 minutes in one direction.
And I think that stuff's cool.
Yeah, definitely. The Witcher 3 is also really good about that stuff. I especially in the Skellige Islands, and if you've played that, you basically know that it looks like a mismatch of Scotland and Norway with people speaking in Irish accents because, why not? Very beautiful. It's like that game's version of Skyrim. And just walking around the islands and just driving the boat across the sea to get to other islands and stuff. Just the exploring part of that. It feels great because there's just an air of mystery that surrounds that with the fog in the distance, and you see mountains in the distance, and you wonder if you can get up there. So you go there and you find that you actually can and stuff. That did so much for me, for my immersion as well.
I also like the way The Witcher, the markers The Witcher puts in places where, you'll have a quest that'll tell you to go to this particular village, and as you're making your way there, it'll randomly pop up saying, like new area discovered or new marker discovered, and it kind of makes you want to stop suddenly and look around real quick.
Yeah, they also never tell you what you've discovered. It's just a question mark on your map. So if you want to find out what's there, you actually have to physically go there.
Yeah, and I think that's a good kind of in-between place because, it can be very hard to design the world in a way that'll, I guess, encourage people to go in a specific direction without being so on the nose. Like, you don't want to have a random hall that just pops up out of nowhere, like with bright arrows, because it ruins the immersion. But at the same time, with open world games, it can be very difficult because when you have a 360-degree field of view where you can go, it's very hard to kind of nudge the player to go in one particular direction. So with The Witcher, you have those vaguely generic markers that say, question mark, hey, there's something here. You can go find out what it is if you go that way. It could be an enemy, it could be a bandit camp, it could be an item.
Yeah, and that might seem a little more towards the heavy-handed side by basically telling you.
It's very light. It holds your hand, but it doesn't do it in a very obvious way. It doesn't tell you, like, if you go this way, there's loot, go, 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 go. It's just, there's stuff there. We can't tell you what it is, so go if you like, or don't if you don't want to.
And that's the good middle ground. I think you're absolutely right, between the game pushing you in one direction versus leaving you to find everything on your own, and you might not see a few things.
That's something I was very excited that Dragon's Dogma did, so I'm super excited to replay again when they release it on PC. But Dragon's Dogma didn't have a quick travel system. I mean, it did, but it was very, very sparsely implemented, and even then it was towards the end of the game. The way the travel system worked there is you had to basically set up waystones between locations, and then you had to have an additional fairy stone to actually use those. But fairy stones were very, very rare throughout the game, and the locations where you could actually put waystones down was very limited. So for the majority, when you got a quest to go to point A to point B, you had to travel on foot, and I thought that was actually fantastic because the way the game, it's got a really nicely designed world where, because it's forcing you to take that trek on foot, you kind of decide to venture off the beaten path and find your own way to getting there, which is really nice.
And they put stuff out there? Or
there's stuff out there. There's random encounters. One thing that I loved about it was the game has a night-day cycle, and at nighttime, there's random enemies that'll appear. They'll be stronger. You can get haunts, ghosts. So as a player, you make that kind of focus where you're like, you know what? Do I want to keep exploring and risk not getting to that point by nighttime? Do I want to wait until morning? Like, how should I kind of approach this?
Which do you prefer as a reward for explanation or exploration? Do you want tangible gameplay beneficial rewards, or are you okay with just little pieces of unrelated story and nice looking skyboxes?
Well, getting a little bit of extra content for exploring is always nice, but I don't really have to have that. I sometimes just go exploring for the sake of exploring. I want to see what the middle of that forest looks like, or I want to see if there's a town behind that mountain or something like that. Sometimes I just want to go for the sake of going.
I'd like to have something there, whether it be like a random piece of lore or an item, just because I think that video games do this really unique thing where they train us to play. And as of right now, I mean, anybody that's ever played an RPG, you almost have that learned behavior where if you have path A and path B and the NPC tells you, hey, end of path A is where you need to go for the quest, 9 times out of 10, what are you guys going to do?
Yeah, go B.
Go B, because, hey, obviously if that's where I need to go, that means there's something off in here. But I think if you start getting to the point where a game, let's say a game releases and it doesn't have anything at the end of the path B, it's just the path, I think that kind of learned behavior starts kicking in and we start getting conditioned to recognize, okay, well, there's nothing there, so I'm not going to waste my time.
And it gives you a weird sense of disappointment because you've had that expectation for so long that it just creates the feeling that something is a little bit off there.
Yeah. And I think we have to have something there, even if it's something as simple as finding a note with a random little bit of like lore. just something to motivate the player, or I guess just to get that confirmation by say, oh, I knew there was something here.
Yeah, Bethesda does that really well, don't they?
Yeah. As much crap as people give Bethesda games, I think they do a really good job of just kind of planting those little minuscule details throughout the world where, you can find a random book, or you can find, the weird, the blind bandit reading a completely blank book.
Yeah, it's all about the little touches, and it doesn't have to be something where it is so heavy-handed, where they make sure that you see everything. They have to be okay with, and you have to be okay with the fact that you might miss something to make the ones that you do find much more rewarding.
Yeah. And most of that stuff is just meant to set dressing anyway, contextualizing the world even further outside of the main story and the side missions and stuff. It just makes the world feel more real, really.
Oh, man, moving away from open world games, though, Yoshi's Woolly World does a great job of encouraging exploration because you have that secondary goal of getting all the little flowers and all the little yarn balls to free the Yoshis. And the way it does it is you have a counter, so you can see how many you need. If you get the first, second, and you skip the third, when you reach the fourth one, you'll see that number 3 slot is empty. So as a player, you're like, crap, we missed something. We have to go back and look around. Maybe there's a hidden level, or maybe we got to jump somewhere. And I think that does a wonderful job. Even though it's a little on the nose, it still has the best way of encouraging a player to actually go back and look for something.
Yeah, that's cool. That's more my style. I want there to be something there that I can actually use. I want to feel clever, so I want there to be a good item over there or something because I thought to go look for it.
Right.
I need a little bit more than just a nice skybox or an interesting character. Well, an interesting character would be cool, but just in general, I like something that ties back into the gameplay and makes me feel like a cool dude for finding the secret path or whatever.
Well, you'll always feel that way if you discover something that the game didn't point you to. So
yeah, and that's the thing. It's one of the hardest things to do, to speak without saying anything, just to put it in there and leave it. And I think it's something that's important. I think it's nice to showcase it when people do it right.
Yeah, and I like that there seems to be a bigger demand for exploration focused games anyway. With Star Citizen being a thing now, and Elite Dangerous being a thing, and No Man's Sky also coming out, which, the main focus of that game is just exploring stuff. And I love that people seem to be more open to the idea of just exploration-focused games now.
See, but I don't know if we're in a point where we can have a game that's just based on exploration. I think that they make up a really nice subsection of a game as a whole. They're a really nice addition to them, but when you have a game solely based on exploration, I think you start getting a very polarizing reactions towards it.
Who knows? I mean, yeah, you've got polarizing opinions within the Elite Dangerous community, to be sure, but being an explorer in that game is a very valid choice and something that could net you a decent amount of money in addition to finding some really, really cool stuff like star systems that have 3 stars all of different sizes orbiting each other, or a planet with a black hole close to it, something like that. So it is a valid choice in some games.
Yeah. I think that it comes down to more of the motivation of the player than it is on the designer. Is the kind of person where the destination is the reward and they can go and say, wow, that's neat, and feel fulfilled from that? Or is it, more of the person who wants something that ties back into the overall gameplay?
I think traveling around is its own reward, really, because I get to see pretty stuff, and especially with, modern day graphics, the world looks amazing. And with, new technologies in terms of sound design and positional audio and stuff, the worlds feel more real and the worlds feel more mysterious because of that combination between the sound and the graphics. And that makes just walking around just one of my favorite pastimes in a lot of open world games. I've been doing that recently with Watch Dogs as well, which is a fantastic game to just walk around in because the city feels very alive and it feels very lived in. So I want to see all the places where those people live, where those virtual characters live. I think it's very interesting that that's a possibility.
That's true,
now.
And it is absolutely, like you said, tied into the forward progress of technology, because as they're able to increase the realistic nature of the environment, then going somewhere becomes more of its own reward.
Yeah. And to be honest, it's the reason why I look forward to No Man's Sky. I mean, that game's art style is, in my opinion, fantastic. And I can't wait to hop from planet to planet, from star system to star system, to see what kind of weird thing I can encounter now. It's not so much about the destination, even though there is a destination, which is the center of the galaxy, because there's something there apparently. But it's not why I want to play that game. I want to play that game to see what I can find and to discover things and to be the first person to discover those things, because that means I can name them, which is cool.
So there are multiple ways to incentivize people to play your game. There are punishments for not playing, in which the game sort of moves on without you and you might not be competitive. It might actually actively penalize you for not logging in by not giving you certain things. And then there's also the other side of the coin where your reward is not to play the game. Basically, you gain upgrades and things that take away some of the more trivial tasks from a game, and the game encourages you to play it less. And I think that these two aspects are sort of strange in the way that they incentivize you to not play, or incentivize you to play by punishing you for not playing. The dynamic between those two, I think, is interesting, so I thought I'd bring it up and talk about it a little bit.
The big one here is rested XP.
That's actually about to say the first thing that popped to mind was World of Warcraft there, and just any RPG that has ever done that.
Yeah, but it doesn't really trivialize his content. It just makes sure that you can catch up with the rest easier if you can't play the game for extended periods of time.
And that's both, because there's a cap on that, right?
Yeah, there's definitely a cap on that, yeah. Yeah, you do sort of get rewarded for not logging in for extended periods of time, because after that it's easier to do all the things that you can do in the game, which is questing and PvP.
Didn't Final Fantasy XIV have the opposite, that if you played for more than a certain amount of time, you receive less XP?
Oh, I can't imagine people were happy with that.
Well, which it's funny though, because that's exactly what the rested XP thing is. It's just given a different name, because the idea is that if you play for more than a certain amount of time, you're going to get diminishing returns on the amount of experience you receive.
Wait, World of Warcraft had that at the start, didn't it? Didn't they? They just changed the name.
I read an article that actually said that the rested XP that we have now was that penalty, that same exact penalty, and all they did was just change the name.
Yeah. I do remember that. I read the same article, I think, and it was about Blizzard. It was about World of Warcraft.
Yeah, I mean, and I believe it to a degree, because when you think about it, that whole concept of rested XP, where, hey, if you don't play for a certain amount of time, you'll be able to level up a little bit quicker. In practice, it's actually the same thing as getting penalized for playing for too long, because any kind of advantage you had, it's stripped away after a certain amount of time.
Yeah, just with a different spin.
Yeah, so
it spins it into positive.
Yeah, so it is essentially a way of gating content, then, isn't it?
I mean, yes and no. It also depends on the type of player, because there are players that want to min-max as much as possible, and then for them, I'm sure it'll actually activate the gate. For other people, it just seems like, whatever. It's something trivial.
It's the boost, and then the other thing is normal,
right?
Basically, yeah. And even then, that's because it goes from reward to punishment once your timer runs out and you stop gaining rested XP.
See, one thing, I mean, that's okay, but I think one of the ones that frustrated me more was in World of Warcraft, PvP, the way it used to be set up, the ranking system.
How was it set up? I didn't play that.
I mean, you as you progress through battlegrounds and you get your kills and all that stuff, you got your different ranks. But if you did not play for a while, your ranks started decreasing. Which, on the one hand, I can kind of understand it, because you don't want to penalize the people that are playing. You don't want it to be, well, since Chris is playing more often than I am, he can't reach the rank that I am. But at the same time, you get that penalty for choosing not to engage in the behavior anymore.
Was there a limited number of slots for how many people who could be a certain rank?
I don't think so. I think it was just a personal title that you got for the ranking.
Okay.
But
because in that system, I could understand, because you don't want somebody to reach a rank and then stop, and then they're always taking up their spot.
Right.
So in that sense, it would make sense for it to decay so that somebody else could, take over.
What other games incentivize not playing the actual game? Well, outside of mobile games.
No, in mobile games, they kind of use it as their cash out mechanic, though. You get penalized for playing, and the option is you can pay to take away that penalty.
Yeah, it's just they inconvenience you to push you towards their real money shop.
And that's just a damn shame. Just in game design in general, it's so terrible. You want me to spend money to play less of your game?
Yeah, and the fact that it doesn't only happen with mobile games, I find that sort of sickening, because you've got games like Assassin's Creed Black Flag and Unity that had real money options to remove some of the content, and that included exploration from the game.
That was an interesting change on that.
Yeah, fair enough. If you want to do that is on you, because it has no effect on anybody else. And if you don't want to explore the entire map by yourself, you have an option to do so. But I don't know, it just feels weird to have that option in a game, especially in a game like Assassin's Creed, where exploring the map is like half the fun.
Actually, speaking of Assassin's Creed, I don't know if this will qualify, but I think stealth games to a degree have that mechanic of like punishment for an activity or like reward for an activity, because during your stealth segments, think about how many times you've essentially put the controller down and stopped playing, even if it's for a few minutes or a few seconds, just to wait out a patrol or to kind of gauge where they're at or how the patrol works.
I get what you mean. Yeah,
like you're rewarded with knowledge or with, I guess, a facilitation by not playing.
You're still playing the game though, because finding out patrol routes and stuff is like a big part of stealth games.
Yeah, I think where it's more interesting to talk about is with games and upgrade paths. So you do something and then eventually gain enough XP to gain a skill point to do it faster or differently.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So that is almost the same thing as rewarding you for not playing, because now you don't ever have to do that thing again that took a long time or was sort of difficult. It's minor, but it's sort of like if you take the mobile game concept and maybe look at it in a different light or a context, that's what we've been doing with video games since forever. Get a better sword and kill this enemy in 2 hits instead of 6.
Yeah, but on the other hand, as you progress through a game, the enemies become stronger and have larger health pools as well, so that sort of negates you having better equipment. Like, you're always looking for better equipment in order to try and trivialize lower level content.
Yeah, that's a good counterpoint. Actually. Yeah, it's interesting to see that those concepts are somewhat similar, though.
Yeah, I get what you mean.
If the game never catches up with you, then I guess you're right. Then it basically is that thing. But
yeah,
so they have to. I wonder if that's just like a crucial sort of part of the loop, right? Like, I need to become slightly frustrated so that it feels good when I get above it, and then I need that to happen over and over again.
Yeah, that's risk and reward for you, isn't it?
Yeah, it totally is. And it's interesting to see it if you shine a different light on it in a different context, where now I'm spending real money to get better before the game catches up with me versus spending my time. Now, all of a sudden, it's dirty and bad, and I don't like it. And I think that's probably because those games are designed to be more frustrating to encourage you to do the thing.
Right.
Yeah. And instead of being frustrating enough that it feels good and makes a good feedback loop.
Right.
And maybe that's the difference between those two things. But in general, we are sort of, I guess we're always trying to beat the game, which means that we're done with it and not playing it anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm trying to get out of like the mobile mindset, because like the best examples I'm thinking of are for mobile games. I know my girlfriend's actually playing a game now called Chain Chronicle, which, it's a fun little like hack and slash kind of style RPG with turn-based combat, but they have this kind of gem system where, you use the gems to kind of coordinate really powerful attacks, but once you use them up, you're out, and you need to wait for them to refresh. And it's one of those mechanics where, or even like Candy Crush with some of the progression, some of the things that you can use, you can only play a certain number of rounds per day, and then you need to stop altogether and wait for that to kind of reset so you can keep playing again.
South Park, the Stick of Truth, also has something similar with the special attacks, where you just get a different character, like one of the side characters in South Park, to join your battle and then do a special move and wipe out all the enemies in one go. You only get one of those per day. So that's another example of not playing the game to access more mechanics.
Right. And if you were willing to just play it for a little bit every day, you'd always have access to that.
Yeah, exactly.
But nobody's exactly willing to do that, so it ends up being just a nice bonus.
Yeah, and it's a minor annoyance in some battles. Like, if only I hadn't used that thing earlier, I could have used it now and get out of this hairy situation.
Yeah, and I think what we want is we want it to be more organic than that. We don't want it to be obvious to us that we're being rewarded by skipping chunks of content, or that we're being punished by not playing a game. We don't want that stuff right in front of our face, even though it is true to some degree in basically, tons and tons of games. I think that it needs to fit into the game itself, and it needs to feel like a natural part of the feedback loop or the path to the end of the game. Or, we don't want it to be thrown in our faces, I think is the deal. Like whenever they're too obvious or on the nose about it, I think that's when people start to get pissed off.
Right.
Yeah.
And so that's where the line of delineation becomes sort of unclear to me, because it's bad in this case, but if you just mute it and just fuzz it up a little bit, then it's okay in this case, because I can't quite see that that's what's happening. And it's also terrifying at the same time, because what if I started digging into that and saw that that's actually what I like about video games across the board?
Yeah.
Is because I'm constantly either trying to get this reward to make this thing faster or more efficient, but that basically means I'm playing less of the game, and then I wait for the game to catch up, and then I do it all over again. Like, I think that looking into that void becomes somewhat terrifying. And so when you put it right out in front of us and say, hey, check this out, give me $1 to skip this thing, you want to reject that concept completely, right? Because it doesn't flow and it's not organic.
What about when it comes to ranking systems? Because I know like Counter-Strike does it to a degree too, where periods of inactivity are punished by losing, your ranking.
Oh yeah, that happened to me in Counter-Strike, not this week when we were playing. I got immediately deranked as soon as I logged in without even playing a match. I don't know if that was a time thing or if that was the rank restructuring stuff, but you can see that that's what they want, right? They want you to keep playing or they're going to punish you.
Yeah, and it's sort of like forcing an addiction to that specific game. Like, if you don't log in like a good boy, you won't be able to reap the rewards.
Right, and it's so much of that stuff is just like the dark side of video games, because we are, as human beings, we are more adverse to loss than we are looking to gain.
Right.
It sucks way more to lose something you think you have than to get something new. So it's like it's almost like as game design progresses and we learn more about how people work psychologically, that those two things fuse together in this scary, creepy way where we want to enjoy some of it, but we want to be afraid of some other of it and reject it as hard as we can. And I don't know where we shake out on all that stuff, but it's interesting to say the least at this point right now.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a weird use of the mechanic though, because like you said, it's really prevalent in mobile games, and it makes sense in mobile games because I mean that's kind of the whole business structure is centered around that. Around, we want to make money, so what's the best way to make money? Punish or reward the player for time played. But we're seeing that kind of concept be taken out of mobile gaming and applied to kind of the mainstream kind of just pay to play style games that we have now. And it seems really weird to have that kind of transition in there.
Well, you'll always take the thing that says, now you get this stat 15% faster. Or now you gain EXP 20% faster. Now you do 1,300 more damage. We want that stuff.
Yeah, but it's so counterintuitive. Like you just said, I mean, making a game easier for you means that you'll be finished with the game way, way sooner. And I know that it's definitely true for you, and it's especially true for me. When I finish the game, I have no desire to play the rest of it until I pick the game up again years later. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's a downtime, there's a gap between those two things for sure, and that's the end goal, is to win, to beat the game, to be done with the game.
Yeah, but
not in such pejorative terms, obviously, but
that's assuming that the destination is all. Is the sole reason why we play the game. Well, the journey should be the most important thing.
That's true. That's not false, but it feels like oftentimes it ends up being the second thing, like that the destination is what it's all about.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, that's definitely true. I mean, look at the public opinion for Mass Effect 3, for instance. People discount the entire game based on the ending, for instance.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the same with Dragon Age Inquisition.
It's also kind of had weight in the fact that their rationale was that destination completely invalidated the experience you had.
Which I disagree with, but maybe that is a discussion for a different day.
And for me, they come together. I want the journey and the destination to be a whole thing together. Mm-hmm. I like the way it feels when I finish a video game, because I suppose since I've been a very tiny child, that's been my incentive, beat the game. So when I beat the game, I feel like I did the thing, and that's great. And the games that have a good path up to that are the more enjoyable ones. But ultimately, I have to wonder if maybe that's the end goal.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the ending is supposed to act as a type of crescendo where your experiences leading up to it are supposed to build up to it. You don't want a game that has a wonderful experience build up and then it just fizzles out into nothing.
Yeah, on one hand, yes. On the other hand, I always dread finishing a game, to be honest, because it means that enjoyable thing is essentially over. I always enjoy the journey more because the ending, it's just the end. I stop enjoying this thing that I've enjoyed for an X amount of time because now it's over. Now it's just a very expensive paperweight. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Right.
I never look forward to the ending. I never look forward to the ending. And as a result, I'm always sort of disappointed by the ending because it means I have to stop playing it.
Right. Yeah.
Makes me sad.
See. Yeah. And I don't know what we do with all that information, but it's just sort of fascinating to think about where we're at right now.
Yeah, that's Select Characters for you. We offer no solutions. We only offer more questions.
Yeah, and that's not a bad thing. It's good to It's good to ask the questions. And so I don't know where we go with this whole thing, but it's interesting how non-playing has become more and more featured.
Yeah. I guess bringing it back around a bit, I think the easiest examples to use for it are either MMOs or I guess competitive, mobile games in a way. Because, with MMOs, you have that mentality where you want the player to keep subscribing, so you want to implement those limitations where, hey, if you're playing too much, we're going to punish you in a certain way by limiting what content you have access to, or limiting the amount of times you can run a raid, or they put these arbitrary things to get you to say, okay, fine, I can't raid again and get items this week, so I'm going to wait until next week to do it again.
Yeah, but waiting in most MMOs is not really a thing that you want to do because more often than not you are paying for game time.
Exactly, but like you said, we're still driven to that. Look at the raid rewards. You can only get your raid drops once a week. So in that aspect, you have little, unless you're in a hardcore raiding group and you're using it as practice, you have no reason to run, kill a boss more than once.
That's actually pretty clever design on their part, really.
I don't know if it's different now, but I remember when I played WoW the first time, my end goal was when I finally got there, all I wanted to do was just have everything done so that all I had to do was run Molten Core once a week. And that was what I was the most excited about, was being able to not play that game for 6 days, play it one day, and then not play it for 6 days. That was when I felt the best. I felt like I had achieved the goal. That was what I wanted to get to, and that's insane.
Yeah. But that game is really good at making you want to come back for that one thing, And the one thing they know is most enjoyable, they look behind a time gate.
And it felt so good to get there. It felt so good to get to a point where I only had to play it once a week. It's a strange thing, as a concept,
Yeah. Basically, Blizzard Entertainment are a bunch of bastards.
But in a good way. I don't know. I don't know if we as video gamers need to be more vigilant about that kind of thing, because these psychological concepts like the Skinner box are very real, and they absolutely do work, because it wouldn't be a phenomenon if it didn't. We have to just sort of start thinking about where the line of delineation is. What's the distinction between what feels good and what's exploitive? And we need to start drawing those lines, because if we don't, we're just going to get run rampant over.
Yes, because I was along those lines. I was about to say, on the one hand, some people might think that is exploitive. That running Molten Core once a week is exploitive because it's set up in a way that if you want to gear out, or if you want to reach your magnum opus of a character and have the top gear, you are penalized for trying to do that more than once a week. So the goal is it's going to keep you coming back. And there's people like you that enjoy it. You look forward to that, so that's fine. So in your case, it's not really exploitive, but for other people, there are other people that have those personalities that for them it's crap. Okay, well, whatever, I'll come back next week, or I'm going to keep playing, and I don't know what I'm going to do. I'm just going to keep playing until I can actually have that reward available to me again.
Or if you're me, I usually just play through the leveling content in MMOs, and after that, I cancel my subscription because I don't really want to waste money on a game I only play for a couple of hours one day a week. The draw for me with those games is the leveling experience and the stories being told in that, and the new places you can visit and stuff. That's why I play those games. I don't really care about raiding. I care about the story within raids, but I can always read them on the internet and just watch a stream. I don't really want to play a game that I can only log into once a week to play the little bit of content that's left for me.
And in something that is so subjective in the way that it is enjoyed as video games, maybe it's highfalutin to say, or maybe it's too analytical, but I feel like you have to look at, and maybe it ruins video games completely, I don't know, but I think that almost it's important as a defense mechanism to look at the games you're playing and say, why am I playing this? Am I having fun? What am I getting out of this? Because if you don't, they're going to get you, and don't let them get you. All right, and that will bring us to the end of episode 35 of the Select Characters podcast, except for one other tiny piece of business. We need to pick the game club for this week. And this time, the duty has fallen to me. I will bear the yoke, and I will choose Renowned Explorers.
Ooh, oh, nice. Yeah. Okay, I was actually meaning to pick that up.
Yeah.
Yep, full title is Renowned Explorers International Society. It is, I'm not sure how to describe it. You've got some combat that's kind of tacticsy. It was one of my favorites of last year, and I would like you guys to get a chance to play it and experience it. You've got an overworld map, move from dot to dot, resource management, lots of interesting concepts going on there. The art style's fun, and I think that there are some really interesting gameplay concepts and mechanics there that we can talk about. So let's give that a run through this week, and we'll talk about it next week. And as
I've heard it... Oh,
go, because I was just going to go more outro.
I've heard it said that that game is basically a roguelike board game.
I think that's not bad. That's a pretty decent way to talk about it, actually. It's by Abbey Games, who are the same guys who made Rouse, which we played a couple game clubs ago, the one that Ryan picked.
Rouse.
Yeah, and I think I think you can see them grow as a developer with the same interesting decisions and concepts, but in a way that is better executed.
Awesome.
Yeah, so it's exciting. It makes me eager to see what they're going to make next. But yeah, board game roguelike I think is fair. We're going to give that a go, and you should play it too, because it's a great game. If you have thoughts about it, or just anything in general, you want to suggest a topic, you want to reach out and talk to us, send us an email, selectcharacters@gmail.com. Stop by the subreddit, reddit.com/r/selectcharacters, Facebook, Twitter, 5 stars on iTunes, social media. Get it done. You're out there. I'm over here. Talk to me. Talk to us. Let us know. Let's have a conversation. So that about wraps up that. As always, thank you for tuning in, and we will see you next week.
Thank you for listening. Goodbye.
Later.